I was 34 years old and had built a life in Dallas, Texas that was quiet, steady, and in many ways predictable. I lived with my mom in a two-bedroom apartment that we split down the middle. After the chaos of early adulthood, bad roommates, and friendships that crumbled over petty fights about dishes and rent, living with her felt like a blessing. She treated me like an equal. We split bills, shared cooking, and respected each other's spaces. We were roommates, more than mother and daughter, and for the last couple of years, it had worked beautifully. Then my brother, Chris, hit rock bottom. He lost his job after his company downsized, his girlfriend, Amber, didn't have steady employment, and they were suddenly left with nowhere to go. Along with them came their 3 kids, under the age of 6, all bursting with energy, noise, and mess. At first, it was meant to be temporary, just a few weeks until Chris got back on his feet. 6 months later, they were still there, and our once calm home felt like it had been turned upside down. Space was tight, and tensions were constant, but everyone did their best to manage. Everyone except Amber. From the very beginning, she seemed to make it her mission to test my patience. My bathroom, which had always been my sanctuary, quickly became the battleground. I liked my space neat. My toiletries arranged on the counter, my limited edition makeup palettes stacked carefully in their boxes, towels folded and hung properly. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And after a long day juggling 2 jobs, walking into a clean bathroom helped me breathe. But Amber treated it like a free-for-all. She used my shampoos until the bottles were empty. She left toothpaste caps smeared with gunk. She let the kids play in the tub, splashing water everywhere and leaving muddy footprints on the tile. The thing that made my blood boil, though, was the toilet paper. She had this habit of finishing a roll, and instead of replacing it, she reached for non-flushable wipes and tossed them into the toilet like it was a trash can. 4 times in 6 months, my bathroom flooded because of her carelessness. 4 times I had to clean up water, and worse, that seeped onto the floor, my rugs, and even the cabinet edges. And every single time, she shrugged and said she didn't know it would clog. The trash in my bathroom was another battle. I didn't mind sharing, but she tossed in her used pads and tampons without ever bothering to empty the bin. I'd come home after a 14-hour day and open the door to a smell that made my stomach turn. More than once, I asked her politely to be considerate, but she'd just laugh or roll her eyes, saying, "You're too uptight." I tried everything to protect my space. I moved my favorite products into drawers. I even carried my expensive serums and palettes into my bedroom, locking them in a tote under my bed like I was living in a college dorm again. But I couldn't move the whole bathroom. I paid half the bills, worked myself to the bone, and yet every time I walked in, it was like stepping into a disaster zone I didn't create. The tipping point came one Friday night. I'd pulled a double shift, first at the office job where I processed insurance claims, then at the restaurant where I waited tables 3 nights a week. I came home exhausted, dropped my bag on my bed, and shuffled to the bathroom. The floor was wet. A roll of wipes sat half dissolved in the toilet bowl. My best highlighter palette, the one I'd saved for months to splurge on, was cracked open on the counter, glitter smeared across the sink like someone had let the kids finger paint with it. I stood there, frozen, too tired to even scream. That palette wasn't replaceable. It wasn't about the makeup. It was about respect. Respect I wasn't getting. I confronted Amber the next morning. My mom was in the kitchen, quietly making coffee, while Chris and the kids were still asleep. I walked straight up to her and said, "I don't know how many more times I have to say this, but stop using my things. Stop leaving my bathroom in a mess. Stop letting the kids destroy it." She gave me this smug little smile, one corner of her mouth lifting, and said, "It's just a bathroom. Relax." Just a bathroom. To her, it was nothing. To me, it was the last square of personal space I had left in that cramped apartment. That was the moment I decided I needed a lock. Not a polite conversation, not a plea, not another compromise. A lock. If she couldn't respect boundaries, I would build one she physically couldn't cross. But then the guilt crept in. Was I really about to put a lock on a door in my own apartment, like some kind of gatekeeper? Was I making the house less functional for everyone? My mom, who had been neutral through most of the tension, raised an eyebrow when I mentioned it to her. I get it, but you know your brother's gonna throw a fit. And he did. When word got around that I was considering it, Chris got defensive, claiming I was being dramatic. Amber, of course, played the victim, whining that I was excluding her, that I was making her feel like she wasn't family, that I was punishing her kids. But I didn't see it that way. I saw it as the only way to save my sanity. Because every time I came home, I braced myself before opening that bathroom door, wondering what new disaster waited for me. My home didn't feel like mine anymore. My peace was gone, my patience was gone, and the only thing standing between me and total resentment was a simple lock I could order on Amazon for $20.
Would I be the asshole if I finally did it? That question ran in circles in my head for days, spinning like a song I couldn't shut off. I thought about it in the car on my way to work. I thought about it while folding laundry at midnight. And I thought about it when I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing my teeth with half an eye on the door, listening for footsteps. I wanted to tell myself it was no big deal, just a lock, just a piece of metal. But in a house where every decision was picked apart, where space was fought over like territory, a lock felt bigger than that. It was me drawing a hard line and saying, enough. The night I finally ordered it, I sat on my bed with my laptop open, scrolling through options. Simple bathroom locks, digital keypad locks, even heavy-duty ones that looked like they belonged on a bank vault. I picked the simplest, silver, clean, cheap. Something that wouldn't scream hostility, but would keep my things safe. I clicked purchase and shut the computer. The package arrived 3 days later. I carried it inside like contraband, tucking it under my arm before anyone could see. In my room, I tore it open, metal pieces clinking against the cardboard. My heart pounded as though I were plotting a crime. I told myself I'd install it that night, after work. But word travels fast in small apartments, and Chris somehow found the box before I got the chance. I came home to find it sitting in the middle of the kitchen table, Amber standing next to him with her arms crossed, smug and ready for battle. "What is this?" Chris demanded, holding up the lock like it was evidence in a trial. "A lock," I said flatly. "You're really doing this?" he asked. "You're locking the bathroom in the house you share with all of us?" I wanted to remind him that I paid half the rent, that I worked 2 jobs, and Amber wasn't contributing a cent, and yet acted like she owned the place. But instead I said, "I'm locking the bathroom that I pay for, yes, because I'm tired of coming home to a mess." Amber jumped in before Chris could respond. "You're being ridiculous. This is a family home. You can't just put up walls like that." I snapped then, tired of her voice, tired of her excuses. Family respects each other. You don't respect me. You don't replace the things you use. You let the kids destroy my stuff. You leave trash everywhere. And I'm supposed to just take it? Her face reddened and she shot back. "It's just makeup and soap. Who cares?" "I care," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Because it's mine." The room went silent, except for the sound of my mom stirring her coffee in the background. She hadn't said a word, but I could feel her eyes on me, measuring, weighing whether I was going too far. Chris slammed the lock back on the table. "You're going to cause a war in this house over a bathroom." "No," I said quietly, picking it up and holding it in my hand. "I'm trying to end one." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I installed the lock. My hands shook as I drilled the screws into the door, the sound loud and sharp in the quiet apartment. When it was done, I stood back and stared at it. Just a simple knob with a keyhole, but to me it looked like freedom. The next morning, I woke up early and took the longest shower I'd had in months. Steam filled the room, music played softly from my phone, and when I stepped out, my towels were exactly where I left them. My counter was neat, my products untouched. For the first time in forever, my bathroom felt like mine again. But peace never lasts long in a crowded apartment. By noon, the banging started. Amber's voice, shrill and angry, rang through the hallway. She rattled the doorknob, shouting that it was unfair, that she needed in, that the kids had to use the bathroom. I opened a door a crack and said calmly, "The kids can use the hall bathroom. This one is mine." Her face twisted in outrage, but I closed the door before she could argue more. I leaned against it, my heart pounding, knowing this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of a battle I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep fighting. I leaned against the locked bathroom door, pulse hammering, knowing this wasn't the end. By the next morning, it was already clear that the lock had changed everything. Breakfast used to be quiet in our cramped kitchen, just coffee brewing, cereal boxes scattered, kids laughing too loudly while my mom hummed at the stove. But that morning, the air felt thick, every clink of a spoon against a bowl, sharp as glass. Amber sat at the table with her arms folded tight across her chest, staring at me like she could burn holes through my skin. Chris broke the silence first. "You know, it's really something the way you think this place only belongs to you." I set my mug down slowly. "Half the rent says it does." Amber scoffed, her eyes rolling so hard I thought she'd sprain something. "Money doesn't mean respect. Respect means sharing, and clearly, you've never learned how." My mom shifted uncomfortably, but stayed silent, sipping her coffee like she wanted to disappear into the steam. I looked between them, trying to keep my voice steady. Sharing doesn't mean letting people trash everything I own. The kids, oblivious to the storm brewing, argued over the last Pop-Tart. Their voices overlapped, loud and messy. But beneath it all, the tension between the adults was thick enough to choke on. Chris leaned forward, his tone sharper now. "You know what it looks like? It looks like you're trying to push my family out." That stung, and for a second I couldn't speak. His family. Not mine. Not ours. His. I wanted to yell, to tell him that I had been bending myself in half for months, making room, swallowing my frustration, pretending I was okay with 5 extra bodies crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment. But the truth was, I had snapped the moment I bought that lock. I swallowed hard. I'm not pushing anyone out. I just need space. My own space. Amber slammed her coffee cup down, liquid sloshing over the rim. "Oh, please. You think you're better than me because you've got some overpriced face creams and fancy soap? At least I'm not selfish." My jaw clenched. Selfish? I work 2 jobs. I pay rent. I replace what I use. You don't pay a dime, and yet you've destroyed more of my things than I can count. And you're calling me selfish? The words came out sharper than I intended, and the kids froze, eyes darting between us like they were watching a live grenade roll across the table. Chris's face hardened. "Don't talk to her like that." The room went quiet. My mom finally put down her mug and sighed. "Everyone just stop. We're all stressed, but screaming won't help." But her voice, tired and even, couldn't cut through the storm already swirling. Over the next few days, the lock became a symbol. To me, it was a lifeline. To them, it was an insult. Amber made a show of complaining about it to anyone who came over. Her sister, her friends, even the landlord when he stopped by for a repair. She called me controlling, unreasonable, dramatic. Chris followed her lead. Their united front made me feel like the villain in my own home. The kids banged on the door constantly, whining that they wanted to play with my pretty stuff. Amber forgot to flush the other toilet, leaving it disgusting for me to find. Chris accused me of tearing the family apart. And my mom, she stayed in the middle, torn.
Some days she whispered that she understood, that I had every right. Other days, when the fights got too loud, she asked me if maybe I could just take the lock off for the sake of peace. But peace wasn't peace when it came at the cost of my sanity. One night, after a double shift, I came home bone-tired and walked straight into the bathroom. My key turned smoothly in the lock, and for a moment I let myself breathe. Everything was in its place. The counter was clean. My makeup palettes stacked neatly. My favorite candle half burnt but untouched. But from the other side of the door, I could hear Amber's muffled voice complaining to Chris. She thinks she owns the place. She thinks she's queen of this apartment. I sat on the edge of the tub, listening, and wondered how long this war could really last before something broke for good.
The breaking point came faster than I expected. It was a Friday night, and I had just gotten off a 10-hour shift. My feet ached, my back felt like it was held together with duct tape, and all I wanted was a shower in the one place that still felt like mine. I unlocked the bathroom door, stepped inside, and froze. The lock was broken. The brass latch dangled uselessly, cracked down the middle like someone had taken a hammer to it. And inside, my shelves were ransacked. My limited edition palettes smeared and broken, bottles of skincare half empty, towels crumpled on the floor, the trash overflowing with wipes. I stood there, numb. Then Amber's laugh rang out from the living room, high and sharp, like she knew exactly what I had found. I stormed out, holding the shattered mop in my hand. What the hell is this? Amber didn't flinch. You want to lock us out like we're dirt under your shoes? Fine. Locks break. Things happen. Chris stood up too, squaring his shoulders like he was ready to shield her. Don't talk to her like that. This is everyone's home. Everyone's home? My voice cracked under the weight of weeks, months, years of biting my tongue. I pay half the rent. I work 2 jobs to keep this place running. You don't pay a dime, Amber, and you think you can just take whatever you want and trash it. Maybe if you weren't so selfish, you'd understand what family means. The word cut deeper than she knew. My chest tightened, and I looked at Chris, my own brother, searching for something. Loyalty, understanding, even just a flicker of the bond we used to have. But his face was stone. Maybe she's right, he said quietly. Maybe you care more about your things than your family. That landed like a punch. For a moment, no one spoke. Even the kids had gone quiet, wide-eyed in the corner. My mom walked in then, eyes darting between us, taking in the broken lock still clutched in my hand. Her face was pale, tired. Enough, all of you. We can't keep living like this. But the way she looked at me, like I was the one holding the match to the fire, made my stomach sink. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about a bathroom anymore. This was about the whole apartment, the whole fragile balance we'd been pretending to hold together. And something had just snapped.
The silence after Mom's words felt like a heavy blanket pressing on my chest. The kids fidgeted, Amber folded her arms smugly, Chris kept his jaw locked tight, and I just stood there gripping the broken lock like it was the only proof I had left that I wasn't crazy. Enough, Mom repeated, her voice firmer this time. We're going to figure this out tonight. I turned toward her, desperate for her to see me, to see how much I had been carrying. Mom, I can't live like this anymore. I come home to a wrecked bathroom every day. My things are ruined. My space is gone. You know it's true. She pressed her lips together, her eyes softening just a little. But before she could say anything, Amber jumped in. She always locks herself away like she's better than us. Maybe if she learned how to share, this wouldn't be an issue. Share? I laughed bitterly. Sharing means respect, Amber.
It doesn't mean taking my stuff, breaking my lock, and letting your kids treat my bathroom like a playground." Chris stepped forward, his voice low but sharp. "You're making this harder than it has to be. We've been here 6 months, and you still act like we're intruders. We're family." "No, you're freeloaders," I shot back before I could stop myself. "Family helps. Family contributes. You don't pay rent. You don't replace anything you use. You don't even take the damn trash out." His face flushed red, and for a second, I thought he might actually yell. But instead, he just shook his head, grabbed his jacket, and stormed toward the door. Amber followed, tossing me a glare sharp enough to cut glass, her daughters trailing behind like little shadows. The apartment door slammed so hard, the picture frame on the wall rattled. I let out a shaky breath, the adrenaline buzzing in my veins. My hands were still trembling from gripping that broken lock. Mom sighed, sinking into the couch like all the air had left her. "You know they don't have anywhere else to go," she said softly. And I wanted to scream, because I knew she was right, but I also knew I couldn't survive another 6 months of this, not without losing my mind. I sank into the chair across from her. "Then they can stay, but I need a lock on my bathroom, a real one, heavy duty. This isn't up for debate anymore." For the first time in months, Mom didn't argue. She just closed her eyes, rubbed her forehead, and nodded. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city hum outside, the distant rumble of cars on I-95, the muffled laughter of neighbors in the apartment above. Usually, those sounds lulled me to sleep, but not tonight. Tonight, all I could hear was Amber's voice dripping with mockery. "Maybe if you weren't so selfish, you'd understand what family means." I rolled over, clenching my jaw. Family. That word had always meant comfort, safety, trust. Now, it felt like a weapon. The next morning, I drove straight to the hardware store, bought the heaviest lock they had, and installed it myself. With each turn of the screwdriver, I felt a little more of my power come back, a little more of myself. But even as the final screw went in, a part of me knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of a bigger fight, because Amber and Chris weren't going to let it go, and I wasn't about to back down.
The new lock clicked shut with a satisfying snap, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had control again. I could breathe. I could take a shower without worrying that the curtain would be streaked with little handprints, or that my skincare bottles would be empty, or that the toilet would be clogged with wipes. But that peace didn't last long. 2 nights later, I came home late from my second job. The air in the apartment was thick and heavy, like walking into a storm before the lightning hits. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, arms folded tight across her chest, while Amber leaned against the counter with that smug smile she wore when she thought she'd won something. Chris stood behind her, silent, but his jaw was tight and his eyes burned into me. "What now?" I asked, my keys still dangling in my hand. Amber tilted her head, her voice syrupy sweet. "We had a little incident tonight." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" Chris crossed his arms. "The kids needed the bathroom and you had it locked." I blinked at him. "So? There's another bathroom." Mom's eyes flicked up at me, full of weariness. "The kids were crying," she said softly. "They were upset they couldn't use yours." I almost laughed. "Crying? They have a bathroom right down the hall. They just wanted mine." Amber's smile widened, and I could see it, the game she was playing. She wanted me to look like the villain, the selfish aunt who locked little girls out of a bathroom. I dropped my bag onto the table and leaned forward. "You mean the same kids who flooded my toilet 3 times, who smeared toothpaste all over my mirror, who dumped half my makeup into the sink? Yeah, forgive me if I don't feel bad for putting a lock on the door." Chris slammed his fist onto the counter, making the dishes rattle.
You're unbelievable. You think you're so much better than us because you have a job, because you can pay bills? We're trying, okay? We're trying to get back on our feet. Then try harder, I snapped, because right now, you're not just living here, you're taking over, and I'm done cleaning up after you. Amber's face hardened. You act like this is your apartment. Newsflash, it's your mom's place too, and she doesn't seem to have a problem sharing. Mom shifted uncomfortably, but she didn't say anything. That silence cut deeper than all of Amber's words combined. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Sharing is one thing. Being disrespected is another. And if you think I'm going to let you or your kids destroy the one space I have left, you're dead wrong. Amber smirked. We'll see about that. The way she said it sent a chill down my spine. The next morning, I found the lock scratched, like someone had tried to jimmy it open with a key or a screwdriver. My bathroom light was left on, even though I was sure I'd turned it off. And on the counter, sitting right next to my toothbrush, was an empty bottle of foundation, the one I had hidden at the back of the cabinet. Amber had been in there. She was sending me a message. I stared at the counter, my hands shaking. The kids weren't the problem anymore. It was her. She wanted to push me, wanted me to snap, wanted me to look like the unstable one so Mom would side with her. And the terrifying thing was, it was working. That night, Mom called me into the living room. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were tired. We can't keep doing this. It's tearing the family apart. I sank into the chair across from her. I didn't start this, Mom. I just want boundaries. Amber, sitting on the couch with her arms around her daughters, piped up before Mom could answer. Boundaries? You mean walls. You're shutting us out like we're strangers. You are strangers. You've been here 6 months, and you've turned my life upside down. But instead, I looked at Mom. What do you want me to do? Just let her trash my space until I have nothing left? Mom hesitated. Maybe you could take the lock off, just for now. The room tilted. For a second, I thought I hadn't heard her right. You want me to take the lock off after everything that's happened? Amber's smile spread slow and wide, like she'd been waiting for this moment. I stood, my voice shaking with anger. No, absolutely not. That lock stays. And with that, I walked to my room and slammed the door, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the muffled arguing that followed. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about a bathroom anymore. It was a war for territory. And the battlefield was my own home. That realization settled heavy in my chest. I could hear the low hum of the fridge, the faint laughter of Amber's kids down the hall, the muffled sound of her voice as she whispered something to my brother, something that made him laugh in a way that told me he was siding with her, not me. And in that moment, standing in the dark of my room with my fists clenched and my heartbeat loud in my ears, I understood something else. If I didn't fight for my space, I'd lose it forever. The lock on the door wasn't just metal and screws anymore. It was a line in the sand. And sooner or later, someone was going to cross it.